Hello everybody, here we are on this Wednesday with a weather update and a lot to talk about. We got the potential for some tropical impacts up and down the East Coast from Florida to New York. Yeah, this could have some wind and rain that could impact your weekend, and it's not the only system the models are hinting at could form and impact land in the tropics. We'll look at a second area that could threaten the Caribbean islands. And then as we move forward, I see signs here of some cooler air going into October that could present our first frost. Hi everybody, I'm meteorologist Chris Justus. If you appreciate my forecasting and you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing, following wherever you're watching from right now. I provide early warnings of severe weather, reliable forecast, and a direct approach you won't find anywhere else. Let's get right into the meat of this as we are watching a lot right now. Looking out across the radar, there's some heavy rainfall across the Northeast, but waking up to another beauty of a day across the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, really dry across a large part of the United States, and temperatures are very fall-like. We've got cool mornings, warm afternoons, and that's all from our first really pronounced front that we've had move on through this year. Okay, that front has stalled out just offshore. That's why we have a 30% chance of a named tropical system off the southeast coast this weekend. National Hurricane Center highlighting that there. We've also got Nigel pulling away to Cat 1, set to be a Cat 2, or to Cat 2, set to become a Cat 1, may briefly get back to Cat 2 strength, and then pull away into some cooler water. Then down toward the south, we've got to watch another area. The European shows it skirting the Caribbean islands and staying out to sea, while the GFS offers a more significant and severe threat to that. Hey folks, if you will, please let me know where you're watching from. Anybody watching from the islands right now? Who's watching from the Carolinas? If you will, let me know where you're watching from. Like this video, and we'll keep it going here. Helps me kind of know where you're watching from, and I can tailor this forecast to what you're doing. Okay, let's turn on the satellite here. Great look at what's going on right now. There's the cool front that brought in this weather's beauty. This week's beautiful, beautiful, just fall weather. And then back toward the west, we have some developing areas of low pressure that are going to move east and bring us additional rounds of cooler air. And the two are going to combine to give us a chance for some tropical development in the southeast. There's Nigel. Look at that eye wall. I mean, just a significant eye wall at the bottom of your screen right here. Nigel really pronounced, very organized, and pretty rare. I mean, it's Cat 1, Cat 2, varying in strength over the past day or two, but its eye wall and its structure just textbook right now. If you were a dolphin looking up in the middle of that eye wall, you'd see blue skies, you'd see the stars at night. How crazy is that? Okay, closer to the southeast, we kind of have a sloppy mess. This off the Florida, Carolina, Georgia coast. This is our old frontal boundary. It's been very wet in central Florida the past couple of days, and that rain chance is going to stay high. If you're heading to see the mouse, if you're heading to any of the parks, it's going to be just quite wet. But things do change for the better for Florida as whatever is forming here does pull up to the north. I want to show you first. I'm going to switch gears here a second. I was going to show you something else, but just want to start with this. This is the pressure anomaly. So we're looking for lower pressures. That'd be blue. Right now, high pressures in control of the Carolinas and Georgia, leading to a beautiful, beautiful day. But look what happens. You see lower pressure, a developing low pressure off the coast. Now, this could very well just be a regular old low pressure system, but there is the chance this does get some tropical characteristics with it. I'm seeing 1,002 millibar low, and it moves up toward the north, possibly as a 995, 992. That would be a high-end tropical storm, maybe even a low-end hurricane. I don't expect significant impacts here, but we do need to prepare for the fact that there could be some gusty winds and some rain from Myrtle Beach to the Outer Banks this weekend with some tropical impacts. Friday into Saturday, it's a quick hit, and then it's moving toward the north where it impacts the northeastern coastline. We need to prepare for this because this could play a weekend spoiler to many along the direct east coast right here. Let me switch gears here and switch it back to radar. I want to show you what the radar could look like this because hey, it's the weekend. There's a lot of good football on. You need a good forecast, right? Let's map it out. So we're dry right now, but as we go into Thursday night, or into tonight into Thursday, look at all the rain for Central Florida, just continuing. That's part of that sloppy mess, but it begins to improve as that system pulls to the north. And look, it's trying to kind of rotate around something here. So Thursday, we don't have much on land. It's more out to sea. But look what happens as this gets closer Friday. Look at all that heavy rainfall from Myrtle Beach up through Wilmington, Nags Head to Cape Hatteras, up toward Roanoke, into the Northeast, where D.C. to New York to Baltimore. I mean, you could be dealing with some really heavy rainfall Friday into Saturday here, where you combine some wind with it, it's going to feel quite cool out. Let me show you the rainfall totals across the Southeast as we look at this. Just significant rain, another inch to 2 inches in Central Florida today alone. But as this pulls up, I don't expect rain from Atlanta to Greenville, a little bit of rain in Charlotte East, but I think it's really the I-77 corridor from Charlotte to Columbia East that'll see some rain out of this. The Western Carolinas don't look to get too much, stretching to Nashville, stretching to parts of Alabama. Look to be pretty dry, but a different story from the Outer Banks, eastern North Carolina, really from Raleigh, Durham, eastbound. We're talking 2 to 4, maybe even 5 inches of rain from this potential tropical system. I mean, this could go from just a low pressure to a tropical storm to, at the top end, probably a Category 1 hurricane. And it moves right along the East Coast, providing for 1 to 2 inches of rain, maybe even 3 inches along the I-95 corridor in the Northeast all weekend long. I mean, this is going to be kind of a weekend spoiler for a lot. Weekend totals up around 2 to 5 inches here across the Outer Banks. That could cause some flooding. And, I always like to say when we're talking tropics here that even the weak ones can be dangerous because inland flooding is always the most dangerous, deadly part of a hurricane or a tropical system. And even though this may be a weaker system than we've seen so far this year, they can be dangerous if not taken seriously. And the number one thing that is the most dangerous is driving into standing water, driving into those type conditions. Let's look at the wind speeds because we do get kind of a northern pull to the wind here around this. So there's the center of circulation off the Carolina coast. So it's going to be breezy Friday, Saturday into Sunday for the Western Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, and it's going to be bringing in cooler air here from the north. So it's going to be quite pleasant. You'll go from wet and humid in Florida to drier weather and lower humidity levels and breezy conditions kind of wrapping around this low. We're getting the squeeze play. You ever put your thumb on the hose, the end of a water hose? You sure do. That makes that water shoot out faster. That's the same thing that's happening in our atmosphere right now is there's high pressure to the north and west while there's this low pressure, and that's going to funnel in some wind here. Top winds, peak winds here on this model, the GFS showing 50 to 55 miles per hour. So again, a strong tropical storm getting into a high-end tropical storm here for Outer Banks, and this goes up toward the Northeast where big-time cities, D.C., Baltimore, up through New York, even Boston could see some rain out of this and some wind as we go into this weekend. So heads up there, could be a little bit of a weekend spoiler. Let's look closer at the Northeast here as we're looking at the rain. You've already had some rain the past couple of days. It's been quite soggy here as current radar shows really the I-95 corridor eastbound just soaked right now. Let's look at where we go from here because you've been waking up to cool mornings but warming up to the mid to upper 70s. It's that time of the year that things begin to improve. I'm afraid the weekend's not looking great for you. You already get a swath of rain here into Saturday morning. This stretches up into Pennsylvania, parts of Virginia, Maryland, D.C. We're talking New York getting in on some of this action. And that compact low just sits there and continues to bring in some wind and some rain through Sunday. I think Saturday is definitely worst in the Northeast, but Sunday could feature some lingering rain to where the weekend's looking like kind of a honey-do list inside, right? You'll stay inside, watch some football versus kind of grilling out. Unfortunately, it's been great bonfire weather. It's been great apple picking weather. I know that's big right now. Unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be quite wet. Let's look at rainfall potential. This would be storm total through the weekend. We're talking about some real high numbers here. 2, 3, 4 inches of rain in a matter of about 2 or 3 days here across the Northeast coast. And that's including D.C., that includes New York. So we're talking about some pretty big rain here that moves on through the next couple of days. How about wind? Let's look specifically at the wind swath because Along with that rain comes wind gusts that are 30, 40, even 50 miles per hour. So it's going to be windy, rainy, cooler, and this could have a tropical name with it. Could be Ophelia if it forms earlier than our system out into the Atlantic. So, hey, we need to watch this closely, and we're going to be on top of it, and I'll keep you posted along the way. The models are showing this may not be the only system that we're watching. The GFS especially has been doing a really good job this year at picking up on other activity before the other models do. And in this case, it's showing that we could have something to contend with entering the Caribbean as we go into our Thursday, Friday of next week. So about a week from right now, we got plenty of time to track this, and this is pretty early, but the GFS has done very well in days 7 through 10 to show us what could be coming toward the east. And hey, we need to watch it. This could be impacting the Windward and Leeward Islands. Even Puerto Rico could see some impacts. The European is much more dialed back. It has a similar area of lower pressure, but it's much weaker. While the GFS had a Cat 1, Cat 2 hurricane, the European shows maybe just a tropical wave moving toward the west. So the models differ. Let's look closely at that GFS, just kind of the more bullish model here. This would be next Wednesday. So we're talking about a week from today, approaching St. Martin, approaching the northern islands here. And as it gets closer to Puerto Rico, we'd have to watch that because, this GFS model shows a dangerous situation of probably a Cat 1, Cat 2. This model would be approaching even Cat 3 strength, with the worst of the winds being on that east side, but it's a stout, compact system where Puerto Rico, according to this GFS model, could be in hurricane conditions by Thursday night into Friday. This is by no means written in stone. I just want to show you the possibilities, and we got a big old high pressure up here toward the southeast that should allow enough of an opening here to start to allow this to move toward the north, which it looks like on this GFS model it does, where it starts curving away from the United States as a big-time hurricane, messing up some shipping lanes here. This is a 918 millibar low, according to the GFS. That'd be Cat 4, Cat 5 pulling away. Thankfully, not approaching land at that point. So what about the wind speeds from the GFS? Again, this is the more bullish model. The European does not show this much strength out of it, but yikes. This gets into some of these northern islands of the Caribbean here and gets very close to Puerto Rico with 70, 80 mile per hour winds. Of course, this core would feature the 100-plus mile per hour winds right in there on the northeast quadrant of the storm, whereas the western side's the quote-unquote more gentle side. So we'd need to watch that closely for the Caribbean islands right there, and it looks like that would pull away. Here's the wind swath from our little tropical critter this weekend. Hey, something could get a little spicy. It looks like the worst of it's out to sea, but certainly some wind and rain from the Carolinas through the Northeast this weekend. Let's look at the other varieties of the GFS. This is something I love to do, and as a meteorologist, I don't just look at one computer model versus another computer model. I look specifically at the ensembles. Basically, it's 26 different runs of this model and what flavors they're showing here. And out of those 26 different runs, I've got a solution here from the GFS model that shows almost all of them show a closed-off low out of our southeast system. Then we look toward next week, Monday, Tuesday. Models here showing 1,000, 1,005 millibar lows. The good news I'm seeing out of this is a lot more of these lows they're spread out. So that means the GFS really doesn't have a good handle on what it thinks is going to happen. But it's got a 980 low out here. It's got a 1,002. But out of these, I don't see many that are as strong as that operational run of the GFS. So I would say that the GFS is probably going to tame down its solution here in the coming days, but we would need to watch that closely, okay? But it does show something is there to watch going into next week. Let's look at the severe weather outlook here for the United States over the next couple of days. Starting with day one, we do have a low-end risk for severe weather here in northeast Texas through Oklahoma, parts of Arkansas, some wind, some lightning possible there, nothing too out of hand. And then there's a bigger area here as we see a deepening low-pressure system here. This would be for a large part of Texas up through the Great Plains here, and that looks to be a little bit more significant going into day three. This would be going into our Friday time frame. So Friday looks to be a day of severe weather for Kansas, Nebraska, up through the Dakotas. And looking specifically at this is our storm fuel map. And I do see quite a bit of that storm fuel setting up here across Nebraska. I mean, we're talking 3,000, 4,000 joules of CAPE. That's plenty of fuel to light the fire here. And early indications from our new model. Let's see if the NAM goes out far enough. It does. Look at this. This is a tornado threat. So unfortunately, not only do we have wind and hail threats, but we do have a tornado threat for Nebraska, southern parts of South Dakota, and Kansas. This would be tornado parameters. When I look at this and I look at a 2 or a 3, I know we're going to get a tornado or 2. I'm seeing 3s and 4s here. So unfortunately, it looks like we could have severe weather toward the plains as we go toward Friday's time frames. Early heads up there. Global tropical hazards, love to look at this. National Hurricane Center and NOAA highlighting this area here at the bottom of your screen, right in there. This would be the hazard that we'd be looking at with the potential tropical system going into next week. And snowpack. What do you mean snowpack? Hey, it's that time of the year. We're going into October. We don't have much across the East Coast, of course. That's normal. Snowpack's developing here across the Rockies. But what about the future? Well, it looks to be very warm to round out September. We're looking at the outlook through the first few days of October being quite warm. And days, let's see, this would be week 3 through 4. So this would be the first week or two of October here. This would be valid September 30th through October 13th. It's showing near normal to slightly above normal across the East Coast. That may need to be edited by NOAA because when I look at the oscillations, a telltale sign this time of the year that things are changing for us are these oscillations. And basically, we're warm. Positive would mean slightly warmer conditions across the eastern United States. And that's observed right here through October 1st, 2nd. But look how this trails off and really tumbles on down. This would be through the 3rd, 4th, 5th of October, according to the Arctic oscillation. Let's look at the North Atlantic oscillation. It has a more pronounced positive NAO through the 1st and 2nd of October. But look how this crashes. I mean, this is a beeline right for some cooler weather for us. 4th, 5th, 6th of October. Models are hinting at that. Let me show you this. This would be the GFS model for above or below normal temperatures. Yeah, we get a couple of pockets of cooler weather here and there, but overall, we're looking to be quite warm across the East Coast throughout the rest of September. But look at this. As we round up into October, this model showing it could be at times 10, 20 degrees cooler than normal, especially going to that 4th, 5th, 6th time frame. What does that look like temperature-wise? Well, for Western North Carolina, certainly more 40s on the way. Let's see here if I can get it to Friday. It doesn't go out that far, so we're right here in the wheelhouse of where it's kind of getting into that way out there land. But we're talking possibly the first frost for New England on schedule. We're talking 30s at least. This would be 34, 35. So if not the first freeze, that's possible up here toward New York, but certainly the first frost being more likely going through that 4th, 5th, 6th time frame. So folks, hope you enjoyed the broadcast here. A lot that we covered here, from the tropical threats across the East Coast towards severe weather in the Great Plains, and then another tropical critter trying to form later on this week. If you appreciate my approach to weather forecasting, I like to give you early heads up, a reliable forecast you can count on, and a direct approach you won't find anywhere else. Please consider subscribing, following this channel. I really appreciate you. Truly, I really appreciate your time and your trust when it comes to forecasting the weather. Have a good day, everybody.